Welcome to The Explainer. For today's dive into AI news, we are unpacking a really massive, fascinating investigation into a pretty wild question. How exactly do machines judge human art? Now, we all know AI can generate text. We see it every day. But evaluating the subjective, emotional beauty of a novel, well, that is a whole new frontier. So today, we're going to decode the hidden theories of writing quality that are buried deep inside advanced AI models.
It all starts with a seemingly simple premise. Can a machine actually recognize a masterpiece? I mean, think about what happens when we force a highly logical, reasoning-enabled AI to evaluate something as fluid and subjective as literature. Researchers recently decided to extract an AI's internal logic and rigorously stress-test it to find out. And what they discovered? It completely upends how we think about automated writing feedback.
To actually figure this out, researchers had to build a totally unique benchmark. They curated 30 real-world texts and organized them into 6 distinct quality tiers. We are talking everything from Nobel-winning literary prose by authors like Toni Morrison, straight down the ladder to casual blogs and eventually anonymous forum posts from 4chan. They fed all of this to a reasoning-enabled model called DeepSeek R1, and the goal wasn't just to see how it graded them, but to uncover exactly why.
Okay, so before even looking at the AI's actual grades, running standard readability metrics on these texts revealed our first major clue. And it's super counterintuitive. News writing actually scored the highest for complexity, hitting a 12.2 reading grade level. But the top-tier literary texts, they scored a much lower 7.2. It essentially proves that word complexity absolutely does not equal quality. Literary masters are using strategically simpler words, while reporters lean on incidentally complex language to deliver facts.
Now, when DeepSeek actually sat down and rated the texts, it was incredibly accurate. It sorted them into the correct tiers with nearly 80% accuracy. But the researchers didn't just stop at the final scores. They dug in and extracted over 36,000 characters of the model's internal reasoning traces. You can think of this as the AI's alibi, its self-reported explanation for what it claims makes writing fundamentally good.
And here is the absolute core of that alibi. The AI claims to value intentionality over mere correctness. In its own words, it wants intentional craft, layered depth, and really precise vocabulary. To the AI, perfect grammar just isn't enough. I mean, news writing has flawless grammar, but it only scored a 6 out of 10. Basically, the AI sounded like a slightly pretentious creative writing professor, claiming it only hands out 10s for bold aesthetic risks.
But wait, there is a pretty massive twist here. While combing through these reasoning traces, researchers noticed the AI was explicitly name-dropping. It would literally say things like, "I recognize this as Orwell," and that introduces a huge confound: familiarity bias. Is the AI actually a genius literary critic? Or is it just pattern-matching famous names and artificially inflating their scores based on reputation? They had to run a stress test to find out.
Enter Study 2. To figure out what was actually driving these scores, researchers took 5 canonical passages and systematically ruined them. They simplified the vocabulary, they flattened the rhythm, stripped out the imagery, genericized the author's voice, and simplified the sentence structure. They even combined all of these degradations at once. The whole point was to see exactly what specific changes would finally break the AI's scoring.
Let's look at what that manipulation actually looks like in practice. Take Toni Morrison's iconic opening to her novel Beloved. Researchers swapped out her sophisticated words for super common synonyms. So spiteful just became mean, venom became anger. They wanted to see if stripping away that precise vocabulary, the stuff the AI explicitly claimed to love, would actually cause its quality score to plummet.
And they didn't just stop at individual words. They basically targeted the author's soul. For Virginia Woolf, they took her intimate, lyrical, stream-of-consciousness style and just rewrote it into totally generic, neutral prose. They stripped away all her authorial personality, leaving behind just the basic, functional events. This was to isolate exactly which features the language model truly cares about.
Okay, brace yourselves, because the results from this degradation experiment were shockingly stark. Degrading the sentence structure crashed the score by nearly 3 whole points. Stripping the voice dropped it by over 2 points. But that vocabulary simplification we talked about, that caused a minuscule, barely noticeable drop of just 0.41. The AI completely ignored the vocabulary changes, but it punished structural shifts immediately.
Which leads us right into a massive contradiction. Remember the alibi?
In its self-reported explanations, the AI would enthusiastically praise a text, literally typing out, "The vocabulary is precise and masterful." It talked a huge game, claiming vocabulary was this critical pillar of why the text was brilliant.
But then you look at that tiny 0.41 penalty for ruining the vocabulary. Researchers coined a term for this, the vocabulary paradox. There is a giant, glaring gap between what the AI claims to care about when it's reasoning and what actually drives its scoring behavior under the hood. It acts like a total vocabulary snob, but its actual sensitivity to word choice is virtually non-existent.
The best way to wrap your head around this is a metaphor: architecture versus paint. For the AI evaluator, vocabulary is just the paint on the walls. You can change the paint color from venom to anger, and hey, the house still stands. Perfectly fine. But sentence structure, narrative flow, and voice, those are the load-bearing walls. If you simplify the architecture of how clauses relate to each other, the entire literary house collapses in the eyes of the AI.
What's super fascinating here is that the AI isn't just applying one blanket rule. Its sensitivity is incredibly author-specific. When Virginia Woolf's unique voice was removed, her score suffered a devastating 5.7-point collapse. Her style literally is her quality signal. But George Orwell, he barely lost half a point for the exact same voice degradation. The AI actually recognizes that Orwell's brilliance lies in his structure and his argument, not in lyrical flourishes.
So what happens when you destroy everything at once? You get a catastrophic score drop of 5.6 points. Ruining the words structure, rhythm, and voice all simultaneously proves that the AI isn't just blindly relying on an author's reputation. If you completely ruin the prose, the score bottoms out to a 2 or 3 out of 10, regardless of whether it knows Toni Morrison wrote it.
Now, you might be thinking, is this just a weird quirk of DeepSeek R1? Well, the researchers wanted to know that too. So they ran a cross-model validation using QuenQQ, which is a completely different reasoning-enabled model. And the results? Remarkably consistent. Both systems share the exact same vocabulary paradox. Both ranked vocabulary simplification as the least impactful change while severely punishing structural degradation. This is a consistent behavior across these types of reasoning architectures.
So, what's the actual so what here? Well, for AI developers building writing feedback tools, your systems have to align with the AI's true sensitivities. You need to prioritize structural feedback over simple synonym scoring. Remember that voice is highly author-specific, so avoid universal rules. Always control for that familiarity bias, and definitely implement these types of degradation probes to make sure you aren't over-indexing on the wrong features.
And for any writers tuning into this explainer, the takeaways are absolutely crucial. Please stop right-clicking the thesaurus just to find bigger words. As the readability charts and the stress test showed us, big words do not equal good writing in the eyes of these models. Instead, focus all your energy on sentence flow, argument progression, and the architecture of your prose. Lean into your unique authorial signature, because structural intent is what modern AI actually rewards.
We've seen how machines judge art, we've uncovered their vocabulary paradox, and we've mapped out their structural sensitivities. But I really want to leave you with a final, provocative thought. We know the AI's stated reasoning doesn't match its actual scoring. It claims to praise the paint while it's actually grading the architecture. But do human critics suffer from this exact same bias? Do we as readers claim to love a writer's vocabulary when secretly it's just the structural flow of their sentences that has us hooked? It's definitely something to think about the next time you're reading a masterpiece. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.